Whether you're in sales or you're a coach and you work with clients or you just want to make new friends, being able to connect with people is an essential skill, and it's where all persuasion and influence starts. I've been in sales for more than 10 years, and I've done years of studying NLP and testing out the best processes and the best applications and skills for becoming more persuasive, more influential, and being able to connect with people anywhere, anytime. So if that sounds good to you, keep watching. Hey, this is Damon from Life Mastery Gym, bringing you cutting-edge processes, techniques, and tools to help you master your life. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis, and make sure you hit that bell so that you're notified every time I put out a new video. This video is the second part of a two-part video series on connecting with anyone. It is not required that you watch the other video first, but I will link it to this video so that you can watch it, especially if you find this one useful. So in this video, I'm going to talk more about what is happening internally with us when we feel disconnected. What I'm about to explain to you might seem a little bit strange because you've never done this before, and these processes are mostly unconscious. So the idea behind this is to bring these unconscious processes into consciousness. So when you think about your personal space, whatever the immediate space is around you, we all have a different way of defining that. And this also happens cross-culturally. Different cultures or people in different cultures will have a different sense of personal space than other people. Say, for instance, a country where it is actually very crowded and families, large families live all in the same home, you will probably have people who have a smaller sense of personal space. In fact, their personal space might be completely internal. For most Westerners, especially Americans like myself, we have a little bit broader sense of personal space. And if somebody gets in that personal space, we tend to lock up, or we tend to want to get away from that person. So what does this have to do with connection? I'm about to show you. What you want to do first is get a sense of what is your personal space. And one way that you can do that is by thinking about if there were a stranger standing next to you. Now, this is not a sinister looking character. This could be a man or a woman. It's just someone you don't know. They don't look mean. They don't look like a criminal or anything like that. They're just somebody you don't know. Imagine how close you would allow that person to get to you before you would say, oh, okay, wait a minute, too close. Step back, or I'm going to step back, or I'm going to move. So you can actually stop this video to do that and take a moment to think about from either direction, from side to side, and in front of you, because that usually is a difference. There's usually a difference in the sense of your personal space from the right or the left of you and also to the front of you. Now, if you have done just that, what you might realize is that for most people, not everybody, they need more space in front of them than they need on the side of them. And you may have noticed this, and like I said, this is most people. Some people, there are some exceptions. Most of the time, if somebody's standing on the side of you, they don't feel like much of a threat. But if they're in front of you and they're facing you, that's a more combative stance. So that's a more combative way to look at someone, because that's how you would look at someone, or that's the way you would be standing with someone if you were about to have a confrontation. So that's usually a bit how that shape of that is. Now, like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. Some people can be more of a circle or like a bubble around them. And that's really where you want to take this, is what is the shape of that boundary? Start eliciting this, and you can get really playful with this, and you can start checking in with like the colors of the boundary. What if you change the colors? How does that make you feel? You can also get a sense of what it's like inside your boundary, and does that have a different color than outside of your boundary? So what we're doing here is we're really just coding that sense of personal space and how you create a boundary around you. And you might even think about social situations. You can remember past social situations. You can think about future social situations and get a sense of how connected or disconnected you are. And I'm sure that's going to depend who you're around and what context that is. So try this out with a few different situations and get a sense of what is your personal boundary around you. And you can take this even further by thinking about, well, who do you allow inside that personal boundary? I'm sure it's people you trust. It's probably family members. It's probably close friends. You don't mind them being in that personal space. Now, people you don't know, that's a little more challenging. And this is why it can be very, very difficult in social situations to connect with people you have not met already, or you don't already know. Now, a lot of people find themselves in this situation. We refer to it as social anxiety. They want to connect with people. They want to be in that social situation, but they're not sure how to really connect with people. So they feel kind of trapped inside themselves, and like everything else is going on outside around them. This is a very common experience, and it doesn't mean that you're lacking in self-worth or you have self-esteem issues, but unfortunately a lot of people think of it that way. What you're actually bumping up against is that boundary of your personal space. And where did that boundary even come from? Well, it normally is forged early in life. It's forged throughout your formative years as you're developing a personality. And we've all had experiences of humiliation and being laughed at and being embarrassed, especially at a young age, maybe in grade school or junior high. It's usually in those years. We kind of build up a protective shield around ourselves. So if we don't know anyone or we don't know the person, we're afraid to let that boundary drop. But once we get to know someone, what we start to do is we start to allow that person into our boundary. And you can do that right now. Again, if you want to stop the video, you can imagine the last time you were really in rapport with someone. It could be a friend, it could have been a family member, and notice where that boundary is. More than likely, that person will be inside your personal space, and that boundary will go on the outside of that person. So you're including that person in your personal space. You're including them in your boundary. Now, what you can do with this is really extraordinary. What you can do is if you meet a person for the first time, you can expand that boundary to include them and watch what happens. You'll start to feel it right away. You will naturally start to feel more connected with that person. Now, you will want to do this before you actually are in that situation. You want to test this out, because when people do this, a lot of times fears will come up. So if you're testing it out for the first time in a social situation, it might actually make you more anxious. So I recommend, before you're in a social situation, just imagine it. You can just sit there and you can imagine you're in that context and you're meeting a person who you've never met before, and just imagine opening up that boundary to them and including them into it immediately before you even get to know the person. Now, fears often come up and resistance often comes up. What you want to do is assure that part of yourself that there's nothing to be afraid of here. Unless you are in a situation where people are trying to take advantage of you, and sometimes it can be like that. They call them shark pens, or they call people sharks. If you're in a situation where you think people will likely take advantage of you, I don't recommend opening your border up to them. That border is there for a good reason. It's protecting you. If you're walking down a dark alley at night, I don't recommend opening your border. I would say you want that border in place, because that border does a very good job for you. It does a protective job for you, which is to alert you if something moves in your peripheral vision. It will alert you to say, okay, there might be some danger here. I need to keep track of everything that's going on around me. But if you're in a social situation, if you're on a date, if you're a salesperson, you're working with a client, or even better, you give talks to groups of people, you do public speaking, open up that border to include the entire group. You will be amazed at how connected you will feel. Now, you can take this and even a step further, and I like to do this myself. Once I know I'm in a situation where there's no real dangers, I mean, you could always make up dangers. Something can always happen in anywhere, anytime. But in general, if you're in public, especially broad daylight, or you're at a mixer or a networking party, you can even experiment with completely dropping the border entirely. And what happens then can be even like a Zen-like experience. You can feel one with everything. You can feel connected to everything. And just imagine what that would do for your social skills if you walked into a place, you were aware of your boundary because you elicited, you did the exercises I just told you about, and then you decided to just let it go. Drop that border. Imagine how connected you would feel to everyone there without a border separating you. Now, this does take some work in advance. Like I said, you want to practice this before you actually go out and do it, because you could actually create more fear and more resistance when you're in the real situation if you haven't practiced it before. So in the comfort of, in the safety of your own home, I would recommend trying this out. And this is also called future pacing in NLP. We use future pacing to sort of practice a new skill, practice accessing a new resource in a certain situation. So do that, try it out a few times. deal with that inner resistance, assure that inner resistance that it's safe to practice this. It's safe to either open up the boundary or let the boundary go altogether. And you might even want to give that inner resistance a job and instruct it to know when it's appropriate to let your border drop or open your border. These parts of us that are trying to protect us, we don't want to get rid of them. They do a very, very good job for us. And what we want to do, though, is we want to give it a job, an updated job, a job that works for the context that we're in. I gave you a lot in a very short amount of time. I usually spend in a training more time on this, and I work with people and we troubleshoot it. So if you're not getting this right away, it's okay. You give it some more practice. Comment below, let me know how the experience is for you. If you have any questions, I will answer those questions. Do give this a try and notice how you can take a radical leap in your social skills just by employing this simple technique. If you would like some free training on how to be more persuasive and connect better with yourself and overcome obstacles, check out my website, lifemasterygym.com. I give away lots of free training on that website. Opt in and get started. If you like this video, please click like right down here, and of course, subscribe if you haven't. Now I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below about how you connect with people. What sort of processes or techniques or mindsets do you use to connect with people, especially people you're meeting for the first time? How do you build rapport with them rapidly? This video is a video series that I'm doing on the order. I will